On our previous session, we've covered what is prompt routing and prompt chaining, and in this session, we shall walk through an example that uses prompt routing to do data analysis, find answers from a dataset, or generate a chart. For the LLM, we're going to use the Gemini API, and I suggest just head over to ai.google.dev, get your API keys, and then load your model on your notebook. Install the necessary libraries and get your API keys, and then prepare the model, and you can define a function that expects a prompt and then gives you the final response. Once you have your API key and install all the necessary libraries, you can create a function, for example text generation, that expects a prompt that will give you the final response, the final text output. Alright, let's head over to our section. And so first of all, the requirement is to convert the data frame into the markdown so that we can use the data frame in the prompt. We can pass the whole data frame into the prompt. So for this, we are just converting this into a markdown, and at the end we get a markdown version of the data frame info. For routing, this is an example prompt. We have the system prompt that expects the data frame, the schema, and the query itself. So the instructions given to the routing is to let the LLM figure out whether the output of the query will be a text output or some code to plot a chart, and we are doing that using these tags, route tags. The output should have either text or chart. So the final prompt looks like this. We have the data frame here, the markdown version of the data frame included to the prompt, the markdown data frame info, and the instructions along with the query. For this query, how many projects have been completed till now, we get that the output should be a text output. To generate the text output, here is another prompt, and it takes the data frame, the schema, and the query, but the instructions are different. So this time we are asking the model to spend some time reflecting on the query and coming up with a plan on how to generate the answers and put everything inside the think tag. And for textual answers, so we are asking it to generate Python code and put it inside the code block. So this is how the textual prompt looks like, and we get a answer for our textual response. So the model reflects on the query, spends some time thinking how it will achieve the response, and puts everything inside the think tag, and the result itself is put inside the code block. Now we are extracting the code block, and then executing the code blocks will give us the final output. Now next is to handle the chart generation. So here we are choosing a query that is supposed to give us a chart. For a chart generation prompt, we're asking the model to create plotly code and then put all inside the plotly code tags. And this is how the final prompt looks like. We have the summary of the data along with its schema and some additional instructions that asks it to put the code inside the plotly code tag and the query itself. Now this is important, that we are asking the model to spend some time coming up with a plan and then write everything inside the think tag. Now this is the final output. We have the thinking step inside the think tag and the code itself. Now all we have to do is extract the plotly code, and executing the code will give us the output. Now putting everything together, the routing prompt, the textual answers, and the code generation. Now putting all these three together, we have the routing prompt itself that will figure out whether the answer of the query will be a textual answer or a chart, and then based on the output of the route, we choose whether to generate the textual code or code for the chart, and then we execute them. So this is an example. We ask how does budget influence the project completion. So the model figures out that it needs to generate Plotly code. So it gives us the code and then executes it to give us the final output. Here's another example. We're asking the LLM to find out the team that has led the highest budget project, and this time it has opted to go for the textual route, since obviously that's the fastest way. We need the only team that led the highest budget project, and it has given us the project itself. Now this is what we are doing. We have the LLM. So in this case we have the Gemini as the LLM. We have a routing prompt. When the user gives us the query, along with the data frame itself, the routing prompt helps the model figure out whether to give us an output for text or chart. Alright, and based on this we have two routes. For both the routes we have different prompts. So this is textual prompt, and on the other hand chart prompt. Alright, and these will give us textual code and chart code. Now all we have to do is execute them.